The fastest manner to make a player obsessed on you is to lead them to assume they're the only in control. Let them think they're seducing you. Let them believe you are the only falling. And at the same time as they may be busy gambling checkers, you are gambling battle. Due to the fact here's the reality. Gamers are not smart. They're predictable. They use the equal procedures on anyone. Disappear, reappear, praise, withdraw, confuse, praise. It is not air of mystery, it is psychology. Specifically, intermittent reinforcement, the equal gadget used by casinos and dopamine, addicted rats in Skinner's 1950s lab experiments. They hold you guessing, and that guessing spikes your dopamine tougher than a regular love ever could. But here's in which most people reduce to rubble. They are trying to fight emotion with emotion. They beg for closure. They are attempting to prove their really worth. They turn out to be the lab rat. And that is while the player wins, now not due to the fact they're better, but due to the fact they stay less warm. This sport isn't always about love. It is about who can stay emotionally indifferent the longest. So, how do you beat someone like that? You don't attempt to be nicer. You end up greater calculated. You make the player fall in love with the aid of turning into the only character who doesn't want them. You bait the hook with intrigue, you cause their ego, you praise them simply enough, then disappear without flinching. It's not about ghosting, it's about manage. And no person teaches this higher than Machiavelli, the person who literally wrote the manual on the way to control rulers, armies, and enemies without ever lifting a sword. His philosophy: guys are pushed by two things, fear and benefit. In case you manage both, you win. In present-day terms, make a player feel like they are gaining your coronary heart, then lead them to worry dropping it without ever confirming that they had it in the first region. Because the moment a player realizes they may be emotionally invested, it is over. They either implode or they chase hard. This video isn't always about recuperation. It is approximately reversing the mental mechanics of seduction. And you then walk away, no longer due to the fact you're heartbroken, however, because you were by no means gambling to preserve them. You have been gambling to prove you can win without attempting. Allows start. Hermits get this directly. A participant would not fall for romance. They fall for the illusion of manipulate. And that is precisely where you trap them. But most of the people do the other. They get stuck chasing the highs. They are attempting to decode blended signals like it's a few secret love language. They confuse chaos for chemistry and assume unpredictability means intensity. Incorrect. That chaos is just a mental trick. Intermittent reinforcement. It's the equal purpose people get addicted to slot machines, poisonous bosses, and awful texting habits. In the 1950s, B.F. Skinner ran a test where rats pressed a lever to get food. A few got meals every time. Some best were given meals randomly. The result, the random ones have become obsessed. They stored urgent even if there was nothing left. Sound acquainted? This is precisely what the participant does. They give you a taste, an excellent morning text, a nighttime of eye contact, a shared vulnerability. Then they vanish. Then they come again. And your mind, it spikes dopamine harder than if they were steady. That's the entice, no longer their allure, your worried device. Now, here's wherein it gets dangerous. Players don't simply take advantage of chemistry. They exploit ego. They need you to show yourself. They need you to compete for his or her attention. They need to live barely out of attain due to the fact once they are absolutely available, they lose leverage and they are aware of it. So, you start negotiating along with your very own requirements. You begin justifying crumbs. You romanticize their inconsistency and speak to it mystery. You think, if I am simply patient enough, they'll sooner or later see how loyal I am. However, loyalty doesn't make a player fall in love. Unpredictability does, energy does, reality in the right doses destroys them. Here's what no one tells you. Players do not assume to be played. they assume to be chaste. They have got constructed their entire approach around being the emotional prize, the issue you are alleged to want, release, and preserve. This is why most people fail due to the fact they go into the scenario questioning they want to affect the player, convert them, win them over. Incorrect game, you want them obsessed. You do not reflect their inconsistency. You construct curiosity, then reward effort, however handiest on your phrases. You give them get right of entry to, then deny validation. You create the phantasm that they are sooner or later prevailing, and you then turn away first. Why does it paintings? Due to the fact below the ego, maximum players are insecure control freaks. They have got mastered the artwork of seeming detached due to the fact they fear being prone. They build fake energy through distance, no longer substance. So when you live emotionally calm, unfazed, and uninvested, they short-circuit. Machiavelli would have loved this. He said, "The vulgar crowd usually is taken via appearances, and the world consists of the vulgar." Translation: provide people the overall performance they are already hooked on, then shift the finishing, make them assume they are on top of things, cause them to feel like you are the only who fell. And simply once they start to loosen up, you go out, not with drama, no longer with closure, with silence, precision, timing due to the fact the actual punishment is not losing you. It is knowing they in no way had you, and which you have been the only controlling the sport the whole time. And the extra they replay it, the deeper the obsession is going. This isn't about revenge. It's approximately discipline, power, mastery. Most people never get to this degree. They either fall in love or attempt to out-poisonous the participant. However, if you apprehend the regulations of psychology and you do not flinch, you win without ever breaking a sweat. Now that we've got broken down why the player is inclined and the way they're no longer as clever as they think, permits get surgical. You don't outplay a participant by using becoming less warm. You outplay them by means of becoming calculated. Right, here's your blueprint. Not emotional revenge, now not chaotic drama, surgical manage. Due to the fact as soon as you recognize the wiring behind the conduct, the relaxation is execution. Step 1, manage the body early. Gamers perform in a single body. I'm the prize. You are lucky to have my attention. So, your job is to destroy that silently, not with phrases, but with behavior. In no way ask in which it's going. In no way try to outline the connection. Never react to the mixed signals. As an alternative, stay impartial, elusive, curious, however unmoved. Psychology calls this relaxed detachment, the potential to connect without clinging. It triggers the participant's ego faster than any flirtation due to the fact now they're uncertain in case you're even playing. And uncertainty makes the hunter hunt harder. Step 2, turn intermittent reinforcement on them. This is in which it receives a laugh. Players control using unpredictable rewards, affection, interest, validation. So you turn it. Praise movement, not words. Compliments? Meh. However, in the event that they make effort, you smile, lean in, have interaction, ghost you, move emotionally clean, show up once more, be type, but colder than earlier then. No punishment, no clarification, simply shift the vibe. This triggers what is known as reactance, a mental beat back. When someone feels their impact is slipping, all at once they're operating on your validation and they do not know why. Step 3, give just enough intensity. Most people try to play the participant via turning into similarly shallow. That never works. It will become a void competition. Instead, provide managed vulnerability just sufficient to lead them to assume they have unlocked something no person else gets. Inform them something actual, then pivot. This creates what psychologists call the Zeigarnik impact, unfinished emotional business. It makes human beings obsess over what wasn't resolved. You deliver them a piece of you, then vanish earlier than the following piece comes. Now their brain starts off evolved constructing the relaxation, fantasizing, projecting, wanting extra. Step 4, hold mystery, no longer confusion. Players use confusion. You operate clarity wrapped in thriller. Here's how. Be clear together with your time, limitations, and way of life. 3. However, stay vague about your emotions and intentions. Let them see your habitual is full. Allow them to understand you are not ready on texts. Let them wonder what you're certainly thinking. Psychologically, this fosters into scarcity bias. Matters appear more precious while we cannot absolutely get admission to them. The difference, you do not play tough to get. You're difficult to get because your lifestyles is already complete, and the player, they hate being the only chasing. Step 5, set the emotional lure, then go away before it closes. Via now, they're emotionally invested. They may not admit it, however the symptoms are there. They provoke greater. They subtly take a look at your interest. They create up us in future phrases. That is your cue. Let the instant construct. Let them think they eventually cracked your partitions. Then you go out. Not with drama, not with closure, with fashionable detachment. Why? Due to the fact leaving after you've got given them what they desired. But before they have got absolutely secured, it triggers the private psychological hook, loss aversion. Research in behavioral economics show that people are more suffering from loss than through equal advantage. You gave them intimacy, then you definitely took it away. Now they may be no longer simply missing you. They're haunted by using the model of themselves they have become whilst chasing you. And that form of fall, it lasts. The name of the game weapon, you never needed them. This complete method simplest works if it's grounded in reality. You can't faux indifference. You need to genuinely imply it. You have to realize from the begin that the factor of the game wasn't to preserve them. It become to show that you were by no means under their manage. That's what breaks them, because gamers do not fall for nice human beings. They don't fall for mirror games. They fall for someone who doesn't cringe. And once you stroll away and not using a rationalization, no drama, no emotional leakage, they will obsess over you for one motive. You had been the first person who didn't play their game. You redesigned it. Hermits speak approximately what this really looks as if in actual life. Due to the fact human beings right here make a player fall in love and think it's a few dramatic cleaning soap opera seduction. It's no longer. It is diffused, calculated, and 90% of its far mental anxiety the participant creates for themselves due to the fact you don't chunk. Here is a case study from dating research. In 2013, a behavioral look at on romantic uncertainty observed that people rated potential companions as greater appealing once they had been less sure whether or not the person favored them lower back. Translation: uncertainty will increase desire, no longer compliments, not items. Uncertainty, but right here's the twist the majority miss. Uncertainty best works while the person has ego to guard. It is why this whole approach works nice on players. They are not used to running for interest. They're used to controlling it. So when they ultimately meet someone who does not chase, would not draw back, and does not ask for validation, they begin to question their own relevance. And that questioning, that is the start of obsession. Popular culture instance. Hermits wreck it down with a famous scene, The Wolf of Wall Road. Leonardo DiCaprio's man or woman is a textbook participant. Cash, appeal, manipulation. Women throw themselves at him, and he stays cold. Then comes Naomi, played by Margot Robbie, stunning, confident, unbothered. She doesn't chase. She doesn't flinch. While he flexes, she controls the frame, controls the tempo, and most effective rewards effort. When she ultimately shall wee him in, He's hooked rapid. Why? Because she in no way gave him the reaction he was used to. She failed to play protection. She made him earn offense. After which, as soon as he fell, she walked far away from the strength games absolutely. It really is the key. You're now not trying to out-manipulate. You're making them exhaust their tactics on you, and when not anything works, they are left exposed. You ever notice how the startups that beg traders hardly ever get funded? However, the ones that say we simplest have room for one greater investor. Take it or leave it. They get the deal speedy. Same psychology, shortage, value, self-belief. Gamers are like bad investors. They love offers in which they maintain the leverage. However, the second they feel they are being evaluated as opposed to being warped, their identity fractures. Because under the processes, most gamers are pushed via a worry they will by no means admit. They fear being beside the point. So what do? You give them attention in doses. You show hobby, however, in no way need. You allow them to communicate. Then you definitely lead them to sense like the audition never ended. That's the energy reversal. Here's wherein human beings blow it. They experience the players start to open up and that they get excited. They assume it is running. They may be changing and boom, they deliver it all away. Emotional availability, full access, text replies, clarity. However, right here's what you need to recall. Gamers don't fall for love. They fall for a person who's proof against needing them. The second one you are looking for emotional protection from them, the power's long past. The dynamic resets. As an alternative, you allow them to ask the questions. You allow them to spiral a touch. Are we precise? Wherein do you spot this going? Simply wanted to test in. This is how the entice closed. The participant has emerged as the chaser, and they haven't any concept how it occurred. Even therapists get performed. However, strategic humans don't want to listen something dark. In courting therapy circles, there is a time period for this specific dynamic. The manipulator disintegrate. It happens while someone who is based on managed techniques abruptly encounters someone who would not respond the manner they expect. They cannot create chaos, they cannot bait a reaction, they can't cause guilt. So, their internal global, which become built on manipulation operating, starts to collapse. They either evolve or they panic. And if they panic, they will chase tougher. Not out of affection, out of ego restore. And that's while you go away. Now not due to the fact you're bloodless, but because you already gained. The simplest move left is go out. Permits get medical. You want to understand why this works. You have to recognize how the brain handles energy, rejection, and control. Due to the fact whilst a participant falls, it is no longer romantic. It's biochemical, and the individual that triggers that fall is commonly the only who by no means asked for love inside the first region. 1. The brain craves closure and you deny it. The player's complete strategy is built on them controlling the pacing. They disappear when they need. They reappear once they need interest. They may be used to being the cliffhanger, the mystery that drives you loopy. But while you turn out to be the only who ends the tale, they enter what's referred to as a zygic loop. In psychology, the Zeigarnik effect refers back to the mind's obsession with unfinished tasks. It creates intellectual anxiety, a loop that maintains replaying as it failed to get decision. In relationship phrases, they'll check your Instagram 10 times a day. They will don't forget the remaining component you stated. They'll replay the moment you pulled away and wonder if they overlooked something. You gave them no finishing and that drives their ego insane. 2. Dopamine withdrawal feels like loss. Whilst players are on top of things, their brain gets rewarded. Little dopamine hits every time a person reacts, texts, begs for readability. However, when you prevent giving those responses, the reward device collapses. Dr. Robert Sapolsky, a Stanford neuroendocrinologist, found that dopamine spikes more from anticipation than reward, meaning it's now not even about getting you, it is approximately the chase. And whilst the chase ends early, whilst you take away the opportunity of a win, they pass into dopamine withdrawal. Now not figuratively, actually. Identical mind area as a cocaine come down. They sense the absence of your attention as loss, although they never respected it at the same time as they did. And human beings are stressed to keep away from loss at all expenses, which brings us to 3, loss. Aversion plus ego equals spiral. In behavioral economics, loss aversion is the concept that losing something hurts more than gaining it ever feels precise. A player not often fears dropping humans due to the fact they by no means agree with they had to earn them. But when you lead them to sense like they received you after which put off it really is where the obsession starts off evolved. Their mind doesn't simply miss you, it panics. It starts off evolved rewriting records to justify the loss. Maybe they had been exceptional. Why did they turn away? Did I mess it up? Now they may be chasing the idea of you, now not simply the man or woman. And that chase is what they typically inflict on others. You have reversed the emotional trauma loop without elevating your voice, without ever desiring revenge. 4. You activated their hidden fear, irrelevance at their center. Maximum gamers aren't evil, they are afraid. Scared of being susceptible, afraid of dropping control, frightened of being forgettable, so they invent strength via methods. They confuse you to sense advanced. They withdraw to punish. They flirt with others to inflate scarcity. However, when they meet a person who doesn't react, someone who is genuinely unbothered, that fear gets uncovered. And now, as opposed to feeding their ego, you've got prompted their existential lack of confidence. What if I am no longer certainly desirable? What if they noticed via me? What if I used to be never on top of things? This is why emotional indifference is more powerful than emotional revenge. Revenge? Because players assume beat back. They realize the way to combat. What they don't know the way to take care of is silence. 5. Taking walks away will become the energy play. The majority assume on foot away is susceptible. They need to provide one final speech, one final text, one dramatic second that asserts, I am achieved. That's emotional closure, and gamers feed on it. However, in case you walk without fanfare, without a scene, and live long gone, you have finished what no one else has. You denied them the very last phrase. You denied them the satisfaction of a breakdown. You denied them relevance. And now they're stuck within the worst emotional loop of all, replaying a loss they cannot provide an explanation for. That is why gamers live passionate about the one man or woman who didn't need them. Not because of love, because of unfinished manage. And that is the difference between being remembered and being replayed. So that you made the player fall, you flipped the psychology, you controlled the tempo, prompted their obsession, and walked away easy. But right here's the component no one talks approximately. What happens subsequent? Because power isn't always just about flipping the script as soon as. It is approximately becoming the kind of man or woman who in no way receives pulled into vulnerable video games once more. The sort of character whose value is so internalized, they do not need to react to chaos. They cause silence once they go away. Here's the way you stay there. 1. Withstand the test message trap. When you stroll, you may get baited. A casual hello, a faux emergency, a meme you as soon as shared. You would possibly a subtle birthday wish to be. It's now not affection. It is a probe. They want to realize if they still have get right of entry too. If you reply even courteously, you reopen the loop. You tell them you still be counted. Don't. Psychologically, this is called breadcrumbing. Minimal emotional funding to keep mental get entry to. If you reply, they win. But in case you ignore it absolutely, you come to be a ghost that haunts their strategy. And that is a punishment no speech can match. 2. Detach from the delusion you created. Allows be honest. Part of why gamers get interior your head is because you wrote a delusion script. You notion you can be the exception. which you were the only they'd subsequently commit to, that your loyalty could heal their dysfunction. It won't. You have been by no means playing with insane. You have been exciting a strength imbalance that best worked when you stayed stressed. So while you go away, leave the myth too. Don't mourn what might have been. Mourn the reality that you had to prove yourself to someone that emotionally unavailable. That model of you deserves to be buried. 3. Build a lifestyle so full players feel like downgrades. The best revenge isn't always every other relationship. It's a way of life sovereign, so intentional that emotionally chaotic humans feel like clutter. Right here's how you've grown. You begin rejecting people who feel inconsistent without rationalization. You stop giving capability extra credit than patterns. You don't chase, you study. You do not fantasize, you vet. And the players, they are able to experience it. They experience after they've lost get entry to for your emotional bandwidth. No longer because you have become chillier, but due to the fact you have become unavailable to confusion. 4. Keep in mind electricity is not cruelty, it is readability. This strategy wasn't about being toxic. It changed into about reclaiming the strength that most people hand over within the call of love. You failed to play the player out of malice. You did it due to the fact their techniques simplest paintings on those who want something from them. You needed not anything. You desired not anything. You found. You tailored. You walked, and that's terrifying to a person who built their worth on being wanted. Allow them to sit with that 5, embody the unreachable electricity, quietly the final circulate, say nothing for me. No tail time, no public put up, no restoration adventure for the audience. You just stay better, more potent, quieter, centered, due to the fact here's what breaks a player permanently. It's no longer that you left. It's which you in no way looked lower back. That's what separates emotional performers from real strategists. Gamers rehearse desire. You have become a lesson, and that form of effect, it would not fade. It echoes, final thought, the majority play to be cherished, players play to be warped. However you perform to in no way ought to play once more. You don't just flip the script, however you burn the script and write a existence so intentional nobody dares improvise on your level again. Now stroll and do not flip around because the real flex isn't always breaking them. It is turning into a person so emotionally shrewd. No person gets a 2D threat to confuse you ever again.